Okay, welcome tonight. So there's a girl, and one of the girls who work in our office. At the end of the day, said she didn't do much work today because she was on her social media, and she was terrified, receiving so many emails and calls and videos going on about the shooting in Washington. And the truth is, we're horrified because, I was talking to my daughter this morning in Jerusalem. She was taking a walk, and she told me the craziest thing happened. On the walk, a siren sounded because the Houthim were firing a missile at us. So she said she didn't have a phone on her, she didn't have a watch on her, and she didn't know, she has to go, when the siren sounds, you have to go into the nearest mamad, the nearest bomb shelter. So she said she quickly went into the closest building she could find, into a staircase, and she hid down there. And she said that a few weeks ago she had the thought, while the missiles are being fired, she said, what happens if I'm on my walk without my phone, not next to a shelter, and I need to go to a shelter? And this is exactly what happened. And the crazy thing was that she's telling me the story and laughing and joking as if it's the most normal thing in the world. And that is the danger, because we become so desensitized, that's how you live in Israel. There's missiles flying above your head and you have to go to the bomb shelter. That's crazy, that's not normal. But what shocks us to the core is when the United States of America, the most powerful nation on earth, with the greatest police force on earth, in the capital, in Washington, 2 Israelis get gunned down because of a Meshuggah, a crazy guy who's screaming, "Free Palestine." By the way, there's a sign right outside here. As you go outside this house, on your left-hand side, there's a flag there. And every month the guy there or the lady there changes the flag. Last month it was "Free Palestine." Now it's like a Greek flag. But you watch when you come for the shir, every once in a while there's a "Free Palestine" sign there for 4 weeks in a row. So the events that happen in Israel, the barbaric Hamas that attack us in Israel, affect us all over the world. If it's Johannesburg, if it's Melbourne, if it's Paris, if it's New York or Washington or London or California, it affects us everywhere, and we are scared. The police chief sent a message to all the rabbis in New York City. He said, this Shabbat, we're going to have extra police presence everywhere, just as a precaution. There's no visible threats. But it makes us panic. It makes us question our lives here in New York City. And tonight I want to give you a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of chizuk, strength, and see what we can learn from this. So, by divine providence, this week's Torah portion is called Behar Bechukotai. And in a couple of days, we're going to mark the wedding of the Jews and God. Shavuot is going to happen for the 3,337th time. God is going to give the Torah. It's our wedding day. The climax of creation, the greatest spiritual revelation to ever take place. Right, when God said, "I am the Lord your God," what did the Jews do? What happened to them? When God said the first commandment, all the Jews died. And they jumped back 12 miles in fear. And God resurrected them, just like when Mashiach comes. God is going to resurrect all the dead, everybody who's dead. Right, those who have died and buried in Israel are going to be resurrected in Israel, but anybody who's died outside of Israel are going to crawl, are going to roll in tunnels from Johannesburg and from Melbourne and from Florida. They're going to roll into Israel, and in Israel they're going to be resurrected. And that's why, by the way, many people want to be buried only in Israel, because they want to save themselves the rolling in the tunnels when Mashiach comes. So when Mashiach comes, so God took that Jew that he's going to resurrect us with, and he resurrected the Jews. And then God said the second commandment, do not serve idols. And what happened to the Jews? Same thing, they all died again. So he resurrected them again. And then when it came time to the third commandment, what happened to the Jews?
Same thing. Oh, they told him to stop.
The Jews said to God, please don't tell us the third commandment. Let Moses share the commandment, because we don't want to die. We worry we're not going to live again. So from commandment number 3 to commandment number 10, God said it. And we all know that the Jews went to sleep the night before the giving of the Torah because they wanted to wake up refreshed. But they didn't wake up in the morning on time, and God had to wake them up with thunder and lightning, and that is why we stay up every year on Shavuot. So Shavuot is the greatest spiritual revelation. It's our marriage. It's the climax of creation. And the parsha which precedes this is called Behar. Behar means on the mountain. The question that I have for you today is, why is the parsha called Behar, which means on the mountain? Why wouldn't it be called Sinai? Called the parsha Sinai. The beginning words of the parsha, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Behar Sinai Lemol. God spoke to Moses on the mountain of Sinai. So call the parsha Sinai. Why would you call it mountain? Especially since we know that all the mountains had an argument. They all begged God, please give the Torah on us. There were very, very tall mountains there. And each mountain said, I have fruits, I am tall, give it on me. And God said, I want to give the Torah on mountain of Sinai, which is a very low mountain. By the way, Har Sinai, we don't know where it is until today. You know that nobody knows where Mount Sinai is. And many historians have said, oh, it's this mountain, it's that mountain, and none of the mountains that the historians have said could be true, because Har Sinai we know is a low mountain. We don't know where it is till today. So why would the parsha be called Behar, on the mountain, when especially since it's a very low mountain? To teach us that every Jew, no matter how low you think you are, no matter that you think you need to cower, you think you need to be ashamed, we all need to be a mountain, Behar, a mountain of pride, a mountain of joy, a mountain of visibly displaying our Judaism. When they shoot us down in Washington, when they hunt us down anywhere in the world, in Paris, in London, in Los Angeles, it doesn't matter where, we do not hide our faith. We are that mountain. And that's why the parsha is called Mountain. We display our Judaism with pride. We wear our yarmulke, we wear our tzitzit, we keep Shabbat, we keep kosher. We tell our employer we will not work on Shabbat, no matter what. We will not come into work because we are proud Jews. Rabbi Beryl Lazar, chief rabbi of Russia, was once invited by President Putin. So the secretary of Putin called Rabbi Lazar. He said he needs to meet you on Friday. Meeting was set for 12 p.m. Rabbi Lazar said it's going to start on time because Shabbat comes in. It was a December Shabbat, which Shabbat comes in like sometimes 3:04, 3:05 in Moscow. And the secretary said, yeah, it should run on time. Anyway, Rabbi Lazar arrives 12 p.m. and there was a British delegation of important MPs. I mean, Putin was meeting them, so the meeting didn't go exactly on time. Anyway, it's 12:15, 12:31, and Rabbi Lazar is getting very nervous. What's going on over here? Eventually, Rabbi Lazar realizes that he's in big trouble because that Friday, Jews are especially in a rush. Why? Because it was Shabbos Chanukah. You have to light your menorah before Shabbat. Light the menorah, prepare for Shabbat, and Shabbat comes in 3 something. It's already 2 p.m. Rabbi Lazar calls his wife. He says to her, please send the menorah to the Kremlin now. Fine. Freezing cold, minus 30 degrees that Shabbat. Rabbi Lazar says, can we reschedule? He tells the secretary, and the secretary says, I know the president wants to meet you very badly. It's a very important meeting. Fine. It's 2 o'clock, and Rabbi Lazar says, I need to light the menorah at exactly 3. We have to light the menorah. So he's okay, light it here. They find him a room. He says, no, I need to light it by the door. The menorah has to be lit by the door. So they find him a doorway, and he says, no, but I need a small table to put it on. Fine, they find him a small table. This is already his meeting Putin. The meeting ended, and he has now 4 minutes to light the menorah. 4 minutes. So he says to the minister of religious affairs in Russia was already there involved, together with a couple people. And Rabbi Lazar said, okay, I need matches now. They found him a small table, they found him a door, he needs matches. But no matches are allowed in the Kremlin. Rabbi Lazar remembered, while they're scrambling, he remembered that the guard outside, he saw him smoking, and he's got to have matches. Anyway, they run to the guard outside. It's about 2 minutes left to light the menorah to the Shkia. And Rabbi Lazar quickly lights the menorah. He has it all. And then he says, okay, fine, I'm going to walk home now. It was an hour walk in minus 30 degree weather. And they tell him, take a car. What are you? Uber, a cab, we'll send you a driver. Rabbi Lazar says, I do not drive on Shabbat. There's nothing to talk about. So Rabbi Lazar starts walking. And as he starts walking, he realizes somebody following him. He looks behind him, and it's the Minister of Religious Affairs. So he turns to the minister, he says, you minister, you're a goy. You're not Jewish. You don't have to keep Shabbat. You can drive. He says, no, I'm going to make sure you get home safe. I'm going to walk you home. Rabbi Lazar says, minus 30 degree weather. Anyway, they get into conversation. Rabbi Lazar says, what do you think of what happened back there? Like, I need a chair, I need a light the menorah, I have requirements. Like, am I not annoying for you guys? So the Minister of Religious Affairs of Russia told Rabbi Lazar, he says, us Russians and President Putin, we want to work specifically with you. We want to work with you who you keep your religion, you are adamant, you are strong in your belief. You don't cower in shame. You don't deviate. When we know we're dealing with a man of principles, we know we have a partner that we can deal with. And this is what the Rebbe used to always say. Non-Jews respect Jews who respect themselves. Non-Jews do not respect Jews who do not respect themselves. The more you show your display, your Jewish pride, the more you show how you are proud to be Jewish, the more they will respect us. Does that make sense? So we cannot duck in the face of terror. We cannot hide because the natural inclination is to hide. The natural inclination, they targeted an Israeli embassy. Let's stick away from anything Israel related. Let's stick away from displaying and showing that we are Jewish. No, exact opposite. We need to strengthen our faith in God because ultimately God is the boss. Bibi Netanyahu sent out a message today. Prime Minister Netanyahu was a wonderful man. And he said, our strength is in our numbers, and our strength is in President Trump, and our strength is in the army. But he missed out one thing. Our strength is in God. In the Almighty God, King of Kings, that's who our nuclear weapon is. And that's why we need to strengthen our faith in God when such a thing happens. That is the message of Behar on the mountain. Why does it happen, by the way? Why does it happen? We'll never understand. Our human minds can never fathom why God would allow two Israelis to be gunned down by this crazy guy who then puts his gun down, says, free Palestine. Why that happens, we have no idea. We know that everything God does is for the good. We know God loves us. We know God loves us like an only child. But why people have to be gunned down, we will never understand. It's beyond our understanding. I always tell the story because I love it so much. I've probably told it to you before. But Chabad instituted, the Rebbe was big into the Chanukah menorahs. Put Chanukah menorah everywhere. So the first time they lit a Chanukah menorah in the White House, Rabbi Avraham Shem Tov was in charge. And he made sure to make the press was there, and President Jimmy Carter himself came to light the menorah. This was in 1970 something. So Rabbi Avraham Shem Tov was the Rebbe's liaison in the White House. The White House press was there. They were on the White Lawn. Everything was. The cameras were. The whole world was watching as Rabbi Shem Tov lit the menorah with President Jimmy Carter. It was the fourth night of Hanukkah, and President lit menorah light number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and then Rabbi Shem Tov said, "Enough. That's it." And President Jimmy Carter said, "Let me light the rest." So Avraham Shem Tov said, "It's the fourth night of Hanukkah. We light 4." The President of the United States then said, "I want to light all 8." And Avraham Shem Tov said, but it's 4 lights. He says, "In my honor, I'm the President. Please let me light all 8." So now Rabbi Shem Tov has to make a rapid calculation. What would we do? The whole world is watching you. The most powerful person in the world has just asked you to light 8 lights, even though it's the 4th night of Hanukkah. What would you do? You guys heard the story from me before? No? Some of you, yes. Okay, good.
Many months ago.
Yes, but it's such a great story.
It is.
Rabbi Shem Tov.
To light extra candles. You've made your chiyuv. Lighting extra candles would just be just lighting candles.
Halachically, just
Halachically, you're not doing anything wrong.
But then minhag halacha.
Right. So Rabbi Shem Tov, he couldn't WhatsApp his friends quickly and say, "Hey, what do you guys think the president wants to light? Eight. What should I do?" He had to make a split-second halachic decision. So he's going through all the sources in that split second. On the one hand, like you guys are saying, maybe it's not such a bad thing. But on the other hand, the custom is 4. So like, what do you do? He says, "You know what? Light all 8. That's fine." He just said fine. The next day, the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent a note to Rabbi Shem Tov. And he said to him the following. He said, "From you, I expected more. From you, I expected to withstand the pressure from the President of the United States. I know who he is. I know who he thinks he's the most powerful person in the world, but Hanukkah is 4 lights. And I expected from you, to do more." Now, I don't know any Chabad rabbi that would be able to withstand the pressure from the President of the United States, but the Rebbe thought his Hasidim would be able to. Phenomenal story, phenomenal lesson, incredible. But that is Jewish pride. We do not cower, we do not move 1 inch of a minhag, like you say, 1 inch, for even the President of the United States of America, because we are proud Jews. By the way, everyone doesn't have a place to sit. There's some seats here still, there's some seats all over, so if you want to sit, I had, there's a guy I've been wanting to meet for a while. And this guy is a hotshot lawyer. One of these lawyers that charges like $2,000 an hour. By the way, when I hired a lawyer recently, I realized, how lawyers calculate their hours?
Every 6 minutes.
I think every second. Like, you email a lawyer and he emails you back and it's an hour. It's like, all I did was email a lawyer and then I get a bill for like, what? Okay, I'm not emailing you again, But anyway, this guy's like a $2,000 lawyer. He came to our gala dinner. It was at night and there was a lot of people. But I wanted to put on to fill in with him. And then I met him another time. He took the Belevachat soldiers out to a nice restaurant. And I couldn't put on to fill in with him because it was night. Fine. But I got friendly with him and I got to put on to fill in with this guy. I assumed that he didn't put on. I don't know. Anyways, so I happened to meet him a month ago. I was in somebody's office who's a real estate, buying the whole Manhattan real estate, And this guy was there. Call him Yankel. Yankel was there. So I'm like, oh my God, great. I have to fill in everywhere I go. No matter what, I have to fill in everywhere I go. That day, I went to put on to fill in with a soldier, with the Belevachat soldier. And he said to me, "Rabbi, can I keep the tefillin? Because I want to put on every day while I'm in New York." So I said, "Okay, fine." I said, "Who am I going to meet today with tefillin? It's the end of the day. It's literally one more appointment I had." And I knew the next guy I met, this real estate guy, puts on tefillin every day. So I was like very upset about it. But I said, you know what? This guy. Anyway, so I get to this guy, Yankel's there, and I'm like, oh my God. So I said to my friend, I said to him, "Do you have a pair of tefillin?" So he said, "Rabbi, you don't remember, but you gave my worker here a pair of tefillin 3 months ago, and we leave it in the office, and it's right here. And he puts on every day, he puts on this tefillin." So I had tefillin. So I go to Yankel, and I said to Yankel, "I want to put on tefillin with you. I don't think, as far as I know, you've never put on in your life. And somebody who's never put on in their lives is called a karkafta. His arm is like a karkafta. It's a special, unique saying, and to take him out of the status of karkafta is like the jackpot. Putting on tefillin every day is like $1 million. But to take a guy for the first time in his life is like a jackpot. $1 billion. So he says, "Rabbi, I put on tefillin a month ago." I said, "What? Who put on tefillin with you? How dare he?" Like, what? Who's this guy? He says, I was on an airplane. And I was flying from Florida to New York. And behind me was sitting a Chabad rabbi. Short guy, he says, from Texas. His community has less than 300 Jews. And he asked me to put on tefillin. I said, no. And he asked me again, and I said, no. But we were there for 3 hours. So I figured, this guy is going to be on my case for 3 hours. I did the tefillin. I put on the tefillin. So I said, okay, fine. Let's do it again. So I put on tefillin with him then. He put on. But in my mind, I was like, I missed the karkafta. The other Chabad rabbi beat me to it. 3 days later, on a Sunday, we took the Belevachat soldiers out to Patisse Bakery over here, and there was a guy taking them out, and he had a friend from Massachusetts, the middle of Cape Cod, that one of those areas. 82-year-old guy. And I whip out my tefillin that I have everywhere, and I said, do you put on tefillin? He said, I never put on in my life. So I put on tefillin with him. We did a big bar mitzvah, put it on Instagram, big bar mitzvah, mazel tov, simta. And I said, God sent me a karkafta the same week that I missed that one. But to put on tefillin, that's what it's all about. To light the Shabbat candles. To go out and shout out aloud. My kids sing this. I'm a Jew and I'm proud and I'll say it. Shout it out aloud, right? That's a camp song. That's how we're supposed to feel. That's how it is. And the other thing is, by the way, that the first revelation of God to Moses took place where?
At the burning bush.
At the burning bush. What it says, "V'hasneh einenu ukal." The bush was burning, but the bush was not consumed. And that is the message of Am Yisrael. We will be burnt. There will be times that we will be gunned down in Washington. There will be times that October 7 will happen. But you should know this, Hasneh einenu ukal. The Jews will never be consumed. No matter what, no matter who, no matter what enemies you have, they will never be able to annihilate us. That is the secret of Am Yisrael. When you look around at all the other nations, the Egyptians, the Ottomans, the Greeks, the Russians, everybody's gone. And the only nation that is still around are the Jews, because Moses was promised, V'hasneh einenu ukal, the sneh, the bush, us, will not be consumed. In other words, it's going to hurt us. There will be times like Washington that we will be in pain. But we will persevere, we will survive, and we will come out strong, and we will display our Judaism with pride. This week, on Sunday, so what's today? Thursday. Sunday, we had a motorcycle ride. It's the one thing we've done for Belev Echad, for our soldiers, since the inception of Belev Echad. It's the 16th year that we have a group of motorcycle riders. I'm talking about Harley Davidson, slingshots. Like you have a couch at the back of the motorcycle. And the soldiers love it. It's their favorite day of all. We take these guys come in tattoos and things. And I love it because these guys, it's their only Judaism the whole year. I put on tefillin with them. It's their only Judaism the whole year. Some of them, that's it. That's their Judaism. And we love it. We have a great bond with these motorcycle rides. We go to the Bear Mountains. Anyways, one of the soldiers who came this year, his name is Gili. And he served in an undercover unit. He's a career soldier, right? There's something called a regular soldier, serves for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then there's something called a career soldier. This guy was 29 years in the army, but in the police force, undercover unit, which rides motorcycles. So they get to places very fast in motorcycles, take care of terrorists, primarily in Israel, believe it or not, in Israel, not in God, in Israel. Anyway, this guy saw 10 bodies a week during his decorated career. The guy saw stuff that was insane. But he was injured on the motorcycle. There was a motorcycle attack. He was injured. Actually, his friend was here in New York. His friend was 25 years in that same force, in that same unit. And after 25 years, he was chasing down a terrorist. While he was doing that, a truck came and ran him over. And his whole leg became disentangled. He lost his leg. We actually brought him here for surgery, for nerve pain. And we're going to bring him here 3 months again to receive a prosthetic from us. So this guy, Gili, said, I am not joining the motorcycle ride. Why? Because the motorcycle represents demons for him. The motorcycle represents trauma, pain. He can't do it. So I told him, Gili, you don't have to. You don't want to go on the motorcycle? You don't have to. But just come and look what it's all about. Just come and see. If you don't want to go in it, no problem. I'll send you Uber back to the hotel. No problem. So he came, he looked, he watched, and he said, you know what? Let me try. Got him a good guy to be the motorcycle rider, and he was crying. He was crying. He said, these are my demons. I'm going to try my best to... I said, anytime you want, I have a sweet vehicle. I'll take you back home in my car. He went on the motorcycle, and there was a rest stop, but after the first hour, I was speaking to him, tears crying down. You know how hard it is to face your demons, to face your pain? We all have trauma, right? We've all been to therapy. And when you go for therapy, one of the things, exposure therapy, where it's so painful, you go back to the trauma and you face it head on. And towards the end of the day, Gili asked to ride, to be the driver of the motorcycle. And it's his first time he was on a motorcycle, but drove it And in the end of the day, he was so happy, so thrilled that he was able to face his demons. He wrote us the most beautiful note. And he said, it was so difficult, but I was able to face my trauma and face my pain head on and handle it so beautifully that I actually enjoyed it. This is the story of Am Yisrael. We have so much pain, so much trauma, but we face our trauma head on. On a day like this, we are shattered, we're broken, but we rise up strong and we say, God, we don't know why you are doing this to us, but we love you. We know you love us, and we will face our trauma. We will continue, and we will be Behar, on the mountain. Proud. Are you proud, Danny? Are you proud?
Very proud.
Yes, that's how we're supposed to be. And this, yes, so far so good. And this brings us to the second point. The Torah promises us this week, Im bechukotai telechu, if you follow my statutes, if you observe the mitzvot, right? If you are good people, if you give charity, what will happen to you? V'natati gishmeichem beitam, I will give you Jew, I will give you money, I will give you cattle, I will give you gold, I'll give you Bitcoin, I'll give you Ferraris, I'll give you everything. What is the reward for doing a mitzvah? Melanie, what's the reward? You do a mitzvah, what's the reward?
Doesn't someone else get something good? I don't know the exact.
What would we want to be rewarded for lighting Shabbat candles? What would we want to be rewarded with?
Like something good happens to someone else, right?
Blessings.
Blessings. What kind of blessings would you want?
Parnasa.
Parnasa, livelihood, you want money.
Shalom bayit.
You want shalom bayit. What else would you want?
Olam haba.
That's what I'm looking for.
Oh.
What?
Wouldn't you want
Olam
a
haba.
reward in the world to come? Isn't that what Judaism promises us? If you are good people, you will go and be rewarded with Olam Haba. We know that the people who were killed, who were gunned down, who were massacred today in Washington, that girl Milgram, we know that there's nothing holier than dying al Kiddush Hashem, nothing holier than dying because you are Jewish. It says, Ein kol beria yechola la'amod sham. No angel can stand in the presence of such greatness. So we know that even though she was gunned down in this world, we know that Olam Haba is the greatest thing there is. So how come the Torah mentions nothing about Olam Haba? If you look at the whole entire Torah, you will not find anything about Olam Haba. The only time we know about Olam Haba is from the Medrash or from the Talmud. The Talmud tells a story that Rabbi Akiva, at the age of 120 years old, he was killed, murdered, tortured by the Romans. On Yom Kippur, he was one of the 10 martyrs. There were 300 swords strung into his body. And his students couldn't take it anymore until there was a voice from heaven that says, Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva. Happy are you, Rabbi Akiva, Shata mezuman lechaye ha'olam haba, that you are being brought into the world to come. That's where we know about the world to come. But the Torah in this week's parsha, why wouldn't it say, if you are keeping my statutes, you will merit olam haba? Why doesn't it say? Well, it only says this world. Why? Who cares about this world? Where would we want to be rewarded? In this world or the world to come? The world to come. Remember I told the story of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. I told last shiur. I said Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, one time his students sensed there was another student who went to Europe, faraway land, came back wealthy. And the students were jealous. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai brought them to a valley. And he said, Bika, hismali dinaris of valley, fill yourself up with golden coins. And suddenly there was golden coins all over the place. And he told these students, take whatever you want. They started taking, and then he told them, but you should know that whatever you take now is coming off your reward in the world to come. And they all chucked back the money. They didn't want it. Because they want the reward in the world to come, which is much greater. In fact, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Ha'olam hazeh, this world is compared to a prosdor, a corridor. Prepare yourself in this corridor in order that you go into the palace, which is the world of truth. And the answer is because from God's perspective, everything important is in this world. 1 minute of life in this world is worth infinitely more than the world to come. This world is where you can, and I'll demonstrate this with a story. There's a story of a guy, I forget his name. He had a dream. This was 33 years after the Holocaust. In the concentration camps, these two friends wanted to make matzah. So one friend really, they somehow got a hold of a little bit of wheat, like a tiny dot of matzah. And what happened is, the Germans found it. And the Germans beat up one of those Jews. They beat him to a pulp. And these two Jews made a deal with themselves. There was only one dot of matzah left. The one guy said, let me eat the matzah. And he said, no, I want to eat the matzah. So he says, let me eat the matzah, and the reward you'll keep the reward. So the guy who got all the wax and everything else received the reward, and the other guy got the matzah to eat. But that guy died. 33 years after the story, the guy who died in the Holocaust came to the other guy in a dream. And he told him, I know I gave you the reward of the mitzvah, but can you please give it back to me? I need it. My soul cannot find complete peace until you give me back the reward for that mitzvah of matzah that I ate, but I just gave you the reward. So the guy who had the dream went to his Rebbe in the morning in Bnei Brak, and he said to him, I don't know what to do. I'm like completely like... So the rabbi told him, you are still alive, and hopefully you'll live for another 20, 30 years. And you'll have plenty of opportunities every moment of the day to do mitzvot. You can give charity, you can put on tefillin, you can daven, you can learn Torah, you can put matzah, once a year. But that guy is already dead. Give him the reward. And that's what he did. But the Rebbe said, then I want you to learn the lesson. You have a soul who for 33 years is up there in heaven and cannot find peace because of one time matzah in the concentration camps. Can you imagine the power of a mitzvah? Can you imagine how powerful a mitzvah is? Right now we're doing a mitzvah, we're listening to a Torah class. It says the angels are jealous of this Torah class. You know why? Because all of us are distracted by everything that's happening in the world. Right? We all thinking about what happened with our employees and co-workers and friends. And we all think, what are we doing Memorial Weekend? And we all thinking, what are we doing Shavuot? Should I go in this class, in that class? Should I go to this retreat or that retreat? And we have so much on our heads. And we are listening to this Torah. The angels are jealous of us right here, right now. Because what we can accomplish right this second, through listening to the Torah, the angels cannot accomplish. And this is what it means by God. By God said, I don't care about the world to come. Yeah, you guys care about that. But for me, it's all in this world. The power of a mitzvah is to capture the essence of Hashem. The angels can't do that. Nobody in heaven can do that. Nobody. Only you can. And the guy who died in the Holocaust is nothing greater than dying al Kiddush Hashem. You die because you are a Jew. You're on the greatest level there is. And yet that guy had to come back to receive the reward of one mitzvah in this world. How great is that mitzvah?
So he shouldn't have given it away.
Oh, should have kept it, right?
So it wasn't chesed in this case. Did it count?
It counted. It counted as a mitzvah, yes. Definitely, certainly counted. It says that the Rebbe of Rimanov, before Slichot, during the month of Elul, before Slichot, he would disappear. Nobody would know where he is. And they would have to wait for him sometimes to do Slichot. So one time, a skeptic came to town, and he's like, where's the Rebbe? And the Hasidim said, yeah, he's going to heaven. He's doing spiritual preparations for the Slichot. And the skeptic said, no, he's not. He's probably sleeping in. Let me go see. Anyway, he goes to spy on the Rebbe from Rimanov. Spies on him through the window. He's looking, and he sees the Rebbe. He wakes up very early. And he goes, he watches what he does. He takes an axe. He takes an axe and a coat. And he goes into the forest. And the skeptic is watching where he goes into the forest. He chops down a bit of wood. And then he watches him go into a hut where a woman lives, a widow lives. She's got a couple of children. And he says to her, here, he's dressed up as a peasant. She doesn't recognize who he is. And he says to her, I've come with my wood to heat up your home because it's freezing cold, Russian winter. And she says, I have no money to pay you. And he says, don't worry. When you have one day, you'll pay me. Don't worry about it. And he lights a fire in her house. And he spends an hour doing this, and only then he goes to Slichot. And the skeptic comes back, and the Hasidim asked him, "No, where's the Rebbe? Was he in the spiritual realms?" And the skeptic said, he wasn't in the spiritual realms. He was in the highest of the highest of the highest. He was in the essence of God. Because there's nothing greater than doing a mitzvah to help a widow. Heat up her house. There's nothing greater than that. And so we have to chap a mitzvah in this world. When we chap a mitzvah, we do a mitzvah with pride and joy. We connect with the essence of Hashem. Nothing greater than that. There's a verse in the Parsha that says this week, V'tam larik kochachem. All curses on this week's Parsha. So there's a guy, one of the most famous Jews, rabbis ever to live, is a guy called Rabbeinu Tam. Anybody heard of Rabbeinu Tam?
Yeah.
Rabbeinu Tam? Anybody heard of the word Tosfos?
Yes.
Tosfot? So anybody who studies the Talmud will know that every single page in the Talmud has the Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfot. Tosfot is a group of three rabbis, Rashbam, Rivam, and Rabbeinu Tam. They were the grandchildren of Rashi, who's the other side, and they argue with him, grandchild, grandfather. They argue about everything. Now, Rabbeinu Tam lived at the time of the first Crusades, when the Crusades were going all over Israel, and they were making big pogroms, big tzaras for the Jews. In fact, one time there was a Cossack that came to Rabbeinu Tam, and he said, "You are the greatest rabbi there is." He was the chief rabbi for the Ashkenaz community. What the Rambam was for the Sfardim, Rabbeinu Tam was for the Ashkenazim. The Rambam was more in Spain, in Egypt. Rabbeinu Tam was more in the Ashkenaz part of that world. Anyways, the nobleman, the guy, the Cossack wanted to kill him. He says, "You, the main rabbi, I want to kill you in front of everybody to show the Jews." And just then a nobleman that Rabbeinu Tam, who was a very wealthy man, did business with, came and he said, "You know what? If you kill him, it's not going to be a big deal, but let me take him to my house, hold him as my slave, and I will make sure he converts to Christianity." And with that, he convinced the Cossacks. This nobleman took Rabbeinu Tam, and when they were far away, he released him and he said, "Go, run away." But Rabbeinu Tam's name wasn't Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbi Tam. Who his name was? Yaakov. Jacob. Now there were many rabbis throughout history that were called Jacob, Yaakov Avinu. But none of them were called Rabbeinu Tam. How does he get the name Rabbeinu Tam? And it's a fascinating idea. Rabbeinu Tam, one of the most famous Tosfos, is because of one ruling that he issued. Out of thousands of halachic rulings that he ruled, there was one ruling like this. If a man marries a girl, who has to pay for the wedding?
Girl's family.
Girl's family? Danny, when you get married, who's paying?
Both. But really the guy.
What's the custom today? Who pays for the wedding? Who?
The man. The man.
Can we not go through a wedding? Not pay for a wedding?
The guest paid for it, the places with the
The
gifts.
man.
Today, by the way, in Israel, when you do a wedding and you invite guests are expected to pay, what is it, 500 shekels? What are they expected to pay, 400 shekels? Yeah, to cover their wedding expenses. Otherwise, how are you supposed to pay for the wedding? So there's something called, so in the olden days, the woman would pay for everything, right? You had to buy a guy. You had to buy a guy. But there's something called nadan. Nadan is the dowry. Nadan means the father of the bride would have to put down a massive nadan, a massive dowry, to pay for the husband, basically. And the more nadan you had, the more chances you had to get a good guy. By the way, what was considered a good guy in the olden days? A good guy was a Talmid Chacham, somebody who sat and learned Torah. Today, a good guy is, I don't know, somebody who has money, hedge fund manager, you know? Who cares about money? Nobody cares about money. In the olden days, a good guy was somebody who learned Torah, that's it. So the more of a nadan you had, the more money you had. Now, in the olden days, you know, today people live till 80, 90, you know, it's like the norm, 80, 90. But in the olden days, you lived till 40, 50, that was it. And with so many Cossacks and pogroms and everything else, who knew if you'd even live till 20, 25? So many times it happened that a father and a mother would raise a beautiful girl, and they'd put all their energy and power into raising a darling daughter. And she's now at the ripe old age of 13 or 14, and she'd get married. Right? 15, old already, right? She'd get married, and they would put their life savings into the nadan, into acquiring a husband, and many times the daughter would die. Would just happen. People die, right? And so who would get the money? Who would get the money? The husband, right? So not only would they lose their daughter, but they'd lose their money as well. And this is like it happened very often. So parents would have a double tragedy. Tragedy number one is their daughter would die. It happens. People die early. And tragedy number two is they'd lose their nadan. They'd put 100,000 rubles, I don't know, their whole life savings into acquiring a beautiful husband. And when the daughter died in the first year of marriage, the husband would keep the money. So Rabbeinu Tam saw how painful this is for the families. So he issued, yeah?
I feel like a lot of brides to be would there be a business of them being poisoned because the grooms would pay for for a hitman and then they keep in the gun and they could do it over and over again. Maybe that's why Rabbeinu Tam did.
There's something fishy though.
Well, we would hope they would do research into the groom and he'd be a proper Talmid Chacham and not a murderer. I mean, Allah, you hope. But it would happen because in the olden days there weren't, there were people, the life expectancy was much lower and there were a lot of pogroms and a lot of murders, a lot of terrorism. So what happened is that Rabbeinu Tam issued an edict, a ruling. His Bet Din issued a ruling. And he said if a woman, if a girl, if a wife dies in the first year of her marriage, the nadan, whatever the parents paid for it, should revert back to the parents of the girl. In other words, to spare the pain of a family that just lost their daughter and they shouldn't lose their nadan, he made them return it back to the parents. And he said, V'tam larik kochachem. Your power should go for nothing. Tam, it says in this week's parsha, one of the curses. And because he took away a little bit of the pain of a family, for that we call him Rabbeinu Tam. On the words of this week's parsha, V'tam larik kochachem. V'tam means like for nothing, for in vain. And that's why this great man, who issued thousands of rulings that affect history today, affects Jews today. But he's called Rabbeinu Tam because of one ruling that saved the pain from a few families. What a lesson. Because to save the pain of a Jewish child, of a Jewish family that just lost their daughter, and they shouldn't lose their nadan, that's why he's called Rabbeinu Tam. This past Friday night, those of you who came to our sold-out Belevachad dinner at Park East Synagogue, there was one soldier who shared his story, and it's the exact same idea as this. His name is Imri. And Imri, a year and a half ago, actually on October 7, he was in Australia. In Australia, it had nothing to do with the war. Australia, touring away. And when he heard the news, he went back to Israel, came back to Israel, flew back and joined his unit. He was in the K9 unit. He was trained in the K9. They had a dog. The dog saved their life 17 times from explosives. Wow. But anyway, they were in a house in Khan Yunis, and there's a bomb there. The dog was actually the only casualty. A lot of soldiers were wounded there, but a wall collapsed on him. And a wall full of beton, of concrete. It trapped his leg, and he suffered from something called CRPS. CRPS is called suicide's disease. You have it, it's like you want to commit suicide from the pain. It's so painful. So painful. So what happened is, this guy did surgery, a couple surgeries in Israel, and the doctors couldn't help him. The pain was still there. They tried to install a simulator in his spine. Didn't work. They took it out. Anyway, we flew him to NYU. We raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for this guy. Spent countless hours with the doctor doing surgery. Flew in twice here to New York, actually. And we didn't know if the surgery is successful or not successful. He went to the Ohel. We put on tefillin with him. And on Friday night, in front of the whole crowd there, he said, for the first time in a year and a half, I don't feel pain for today. And when he said that, I thought of Rabbeinu Tam. If you spare the pain of a few Jewish families, he's called Rabbeinu Tam. It made all the effort worth it to spare a Jew from pain. Nerve pain is like being electrocuted every moment of the day. That's how painful it is. V'tam lari kochachem. One of the girls, those of you who met us all, one of the girls who was here at Nehora, She spoke at the Central Park Zoo Gala, and she shared her story. She said, whenever anybody asked her, how are you? She's like, okay, here's my story. And she would say, basically, she was in the old city, and a terrorist, 16-year-old male terrorist, stabbed her friend from behind, and the friend screamed, terrorist! Anyway, she didn't think twice. She didn't run away, which a normal person would do. She jumped on the terrorist and started grappling with him for 2 minutes. 16-year-old, by the way, males are very big. My son is 16-year-old. His friends, like, they're big. They're big and they're strong. She grappled with him for 2 minutes. She was stabbed 6 times in the head, 3 times in the hand. She suffers debilitating headaches till today from it. And she shares her story. So she said, yeah, this terrorist stabbed me 6 times in the head, and I have 15 centimeter hole here, and if it would have been 2 centimeters away, I would have died, and I'm bleeding, and she has like all things. And then she said, no, I'm okay, I'm good. And what? She's good. This is the resilience of Am Yisrael. This is what it means. They may beat us down, they may harm us, they may torture us, they may hunt us down in Washington. But the Sne Einenu Ukal, they will never be victorious over us. How are you? I'm good, Baruch Hashem, everything's fine. Yeah, terrorists, I'm fine. That is the story of Am Yisrael. That is how we are Behar. We are on the mountain. We are proud Jews. We will continue to add more mitzvot and more mitzvot and more mitzvot. And we will realize that in this world, when we do a mitzvah, the angels are jealous of us. So the lesson, the bottom line from today, when you go out of this shiur, first of all, you spread this shiur, you share it. And second of all, you do a mitzvah. And then you do another mitzvah and another mitzvah and another mitzvah. And you are proud to be Jewish. Because that's what Am Yisrael is about. L'chaim v'livracha.